Passenger rights have been a big issue during the pandemic, and with Omicron sweeping the world, air travelers are once again finding their flights suddenly canceled or rebooked.
Let's bring in Consumer Matters reporter Ann Drua with more on protections for passengers. Ann?
Thanks, Sophie. You may recall Consumer Matters helped a WestJet customer get a refund when the airline changed his itinerary and he couldn't get through to a customer service agent. However, air passenger rights advocates say it shouldn't have come to that. Airlines should be following the air passenger protection regulations that are currently in place. When we first met Craig Herman, WestJet had changed his itinerary. His original itinerary to Veradero, Cuba was scheduled to depart from Kelowna on December 26 and return January 3rd. But his new itinerary now had him departing on December 24th on a red-eye flight and returning January 3rd with a 2-day stopover in Calgary before arriving in Kelowna.
Typically, when I've seen these, it's an hour here, an hour there.
Craig says when he checked for WestJet flights online on his own, he saw several flights between Calgary and Kelowna that wouldn't have required him to stay for 2 nights.
They have multiple flights that fly out on that day or the next day, so why we're sitting for an additional 2 nights in Calgary is beyond me.
In the end, Craig couldn't even reach a WestJet agent by phone or email and came to Consumer Matters, where we eventually got Craig a full refund. However, air passenger rights advocates say Craig never should have been put in that position by the airline. And when an airline changes your flight itinerary, it is in practical terms a flight cancellation or delay.
Whenever your flight does not operate and the airline chooses not to operate it, the airline is required to rebook you on a new itinerary that gets you to your destination as soon as possible, as close as possible to the original time, and we are talking about a later time. If the airline cannot do so within 9 hours of your original departure time on their own or their partner's flights, then they have to rebook you on flights of other airlines.
In other words, if it's the airline's decision to change your flight, the airline has to ensure passengers complete their itinerary as soon as feasible, as outlined in the air passenger protection regulations.
The airline cannot tell the passenger, well, we are offering you a flight tomorrow, take it or get a refund, if there is a flight available for the original date of travel, even if it is on another airline.
Consumer Matters reached out again to WestJet to find out if the airline followed the APPR and offered Craig Herman another flight that was closer to his original booking dates when it changed his itinerary. WestJet told Consumer Matters the airline did follow the rules. The APPR was followed appropriately, including sections 11, 12, 17, and 19, in addition, as was our tariff. Those sections refer to flight disruptions, delays, and cancellations.
They are trying to engage in a public relations damage control by flatly denying the obvious. It's a no-brainer that WestJet broke the APPR. They are just refusing to own up to it.
Herman says WestJet gave him no explanation behind his itinerary change. The airline only stated in an email it was making adjustments to its flight schedule. Section 13 of the APPR states a carrier must provide information to impacted passengers, including the reason for the delay, cancellation, or denial of boarding, and the compensation the passenger may be entitled to. None of which Craig Herman says was done in his case. Now, we also reached out to the Canadian Transportation Agency asking how many fines have been issued for airlines for breaches related to the APPR. We were told since the coming into force of the regulations in July of 2019, the CTA has issued 11 notices of violation. 6 of those, for a total of $59,000, were related to provisions of the APPR dealing with communication requirements. Meantime, airline passenger rights advocates say enforcement of the regulations is basically non-existent. And if you have a consumer issue for me, you can email me at consumermatters@globalnews.ca.
All right, thanks, Ann.